All right, I'm going to be creating the Automoblox Windshield using Autodesk Inventor. To do this, I have the blueprints that are provided in the Resources tab in Canvas. Here are the side view and the bottom view of the windshield. And I also have some information that was given to me in the assignment section of Canvas showing how to make the profile for extrusion, the first part in here, and how to go about doing it. This will introduce some new tools into your toolkit for using Autodesk too. So this is a great piece to start with. So I'm going to open up a new part, and I'm going to go ahead and start by placing this horizontal line in here at 3.04 inches. So we're going to go to the home screen, start with a new part, sketch in the XY plane, and start off with a line at 3.04 inches. You'll note in here where it says 3.040, I don't need to put the extra zeros in there. Autodesk will automatically fill in those zeros. If it's 1.000, all I need to do is type in the number 1. And I don't want to make a contiguous line going up in here. In fact, these are just going to be construction lines in here. This is a series of arcs here. These are arcs, and you can see where the radius is. This is a radius of 6. This is a radius of 0.4 here, and this is a radius of 6 here. So all I really want to use are some construction lines to identify these endpoints in here. So this is up 1 and over 2.55. So we're going to do a construction line. Make sure I start at that green dot that makes it contiguous. Going to go up 1 and then over 2.55. And all of that was just to be able to identify where that point is. I need one more construction line, and you'll note until I toggle this off, everything I make from this point, arcs, lines, shapes, are all going to be construction lines. This is 0.64, and I'm okay there. So let's go back to make sure I've got all those dimensions right. 0.64. So now I'm ready to start adding some arcs. Okay, so I don't want construction lines anymore. I'm going to go to arc, start at this point here, wherever these points can join, and here. And now as I drag my mouse up and down, you can see which way this arc goes. I want this arc to bow this way. I don't want it to be this way. And then I just type in the radius of my arc. So this is 6. I'm going to do another arc here, going from the bottom here to the top here. And this one's 6 also. Finally, I'm going to do an arc from this point to this point with a radius, I believe, of 4.4. Glad I checked that. All right. Now here's where you have to follow the instructions carefully in Autodesk, because here it says now, if you scroll down, to delete these dimension constraints. If you don't, when you try to fillet this, it's not going to work. So we're going to delete these, and we're going to add in these tangent constraints instead. So we're going to delete these constraints. Just select them and delete them. And then we're going to use a tangent constraint between the arcs. And there we go. So now I'm ready to go. So I'm going to finish sketch. And now I just need to extrude this thing. And the extrusion info is right here, 2.55. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I need to use the fillet tool here, and it says to fillet this to a radius of 0.5 inches. So here's my fillet in the 3D model. This is where the fillet is. This is where, if you didn't do this right, you're going to see it. All right, if you didn't add those tangent constraints, it won't let you select this arc as a whole piece. I need to put a 0.5 there for the radius, and I need to do the same thing on this other side here, and we're okay. So there we go, we're halfway done. There's the first part of this shape. Now, if I look at this piece, this part here extends down 0.67 inches. In fact, we can see that on my blueprint right here. This extension going down is 0.67 inches. Now, there's a problem with Autodesk in here. Right now, the only work plane that I've got that I can work with in here is this plane right along the bottom here. I mean, I could do any of these parts, but I mean, as far as creating new parts are concerned, I have this plane to work with. But Autodesk, if I work on this plane here, I can only extrude either down a set distance, or I could go up to this curve. Autodesk does let you extrude in two directions, but they have to be to a set distance. They can't go to a geometry. In other words, it can't go to a curve or an arc. It has to go a set distance. So I can't start working on this plane, extrude down, and then go again and extrude up. Instead, what I need to do is use this plane tool here to extend to create a work plane down here, down below. You can see that white line. That's a work plane that I created earlier that I could use in making this shape. But before I do that, I need to shell this part out. I forgot that portion. So this thing here has a thickness of 0.07 inches. See, it's hollowed out underneath here. So I need to hollow this out. So 0.07 is the thickness. So I'm going to go to my shell tool, which is in your Modify tab. Select the surface, and then put in the thickness, 0.07. And now it's shelled it all out. Okay, so I mentioned before about adding a work plane. So these are, I'm going to select here and go, I'm going to do an offset plane from another plane. So I select this, I select the plane that I want to offset from, which is right here. And then I need to offset my distance. And that distance we're going to use is this distance right here, 0.67, because that's how far down I want this to work. I'm going to work down here and project up. So 0.67. So now I have a work plane here, which is the same as this one would have been right there, this work plane right there. Okay, last thing I want to do before I start sketching is I want to line this thing up so that it's facing the same way as my blueprint is. It'll make doing the stuff easier. So this one's got the leading edge. Well, this is of an airfoil, this would be the leading edge, but in the windscreen, this is actually the front part. So the front part's on the right side. And so this is my front part. It's on the right side. I want to work on the bottom here. So this is all lined up where I want it. So now I select the edge of this work plane and I just go create sketch. And now I've set to work on this face. And I'm going to start by just putting in a rectangle. I don't care about the dimensions of the rectangle right now. All I really want to make sure is that it doesn't touch any other geometry in there so it doesn't mess me up. So let's go ahead, center up on that, and let's put it in a rectangle. Make sure you don't put it on that line there. It'll mess you up. It'll create a constraint that you don't want. The other thing I need to do, another new tool for you, is this project geometry. When I created this new work plane, this work plane has, I could see the stuff that's going on below it, but I can't use that geometry for anything unless I project it onto this work plane. So I'm going to use this project geometry, select this whole shape, and now I can use it to dimension to or do tangents or whatever other constraints I want to apply. Okay, so this rectangle has filleted corners with a 0.15 inch radius. So this is the tool we'll use here. Type in 0.15 and then just select all my edges. And then this system here uses a type of dimensioning called datum dimensioning. Datum dimensioning, as opposed to chain dimensioning, datum dimensioning takes all of your distances from a known point called the datum point. So everything comes from the leading edge here of this windscreen going to the left. Same thing, it goes from the bottom of the windscreen here going up. As a chain dimension would have gone from here to the edge and then from here to here, and it would have been a series of numbers in there. This is a lot neater. The problem with this is that I have to use my calculator to figure out the thicknesses of certain things, and you'll see this in just a second. All right, so my front edge to the front edge is 0.68. So let's go ahead and add that dimension. Make sure you're using the front edge to the front edge. And let's bring that there, and that's 0.68. And I haven't set a dimension for this piece yet, so this rectangle may end up getting moved around a bit. All right, and then from the front edge to the back edge is 2.22. So front edge to the back edge, 2.22. It doesn't matter where I put these dimension lines. I just like them out of the way because I don't like them interfering with my image. Again, I'm going to do using this as my datum point now. Make sure you catch the right thing. I don't want this edge of my plane. I want it right here to here. And that is 0.29 inches. And then again, from the datum to the back end is 2.26. Perfect. Okay, so now I have this rectangle exactly the right shape, but this rectangle also has some thickness to it. It's not solid, it's hollowed out. And in fact, that thickness is right here at 0.05 inches. So I have kind of like the opposite of the shell in here. And this time I'm going to try to make things, I have a two-dimensional shape that I want to make thicker. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this offset tool, which it creates a concentric geometry offset, either bigger or smaller than my original shape. So I select that, select this part that I want. I'm going to drag it in, and I'm going to type in the value 0.05. And it creates a perfectly concentric shape with all of the same geometry that my original had. It's just in every point in here is 0.5 inches inside. Perfect. All right, I'd like to say I'm done, but I'm not. Now I got to do the little tedious part. I really hate doing this part here. I need to add these little grooves. If I go to this image here, you'll see these grooves here. These are what allow the part to connect with in real life, it allows these little grooves in here are where that wedges the windshield into the passenger section of the Automoblox car, so that you could use it it kind of holds them in place in here. So I need to do these little grooves, this groove part right here. Just little rectangles is all they are. And if I look at them from the bottom, that's all this looks like. It's just a rectangle shape. And so what I'm going to do is I need to put rectangles, two of them here, 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 and then one in the front and one in the back. Let's move this geometry out of this little dimension out of the way so it doesn't interfere. And again, I got to get my calculator out because this is where this dimension, this is a blow up, by the way, of this front one. So you could see they're all 0.05 inches thick, and they stick out 0.04. So 0.09 minus 0.05 here. So that they stick out 0.04 inches. So where do we start? Let's start with the front right rectangle here. I'm going to create this one. And this datum dimension here goes 0.95, but it goes to the center right here, the center point of this rectangle. And so I want to go to the leading edge of it. And that leading edge, then I'm going to take 0.95 and subtract half of the thickness, or 0.025. So let's do that. 0.95 minus 0.025 is 0.925. So I go in, create a rectangle. When I create this rectangle, I want to make sure that it's not like where that little green dot is, it'll create a um, coincident constraint there that'll be really hard for me to get rid of later. This is where that arc begins, and so I don't want to mess with that. We're going to go over here, but I do want to create a coincident constraint with this line. So we'll just click and we'll type in the dimensions. Remember, it's 0.05 thick and sticks out 0.04. And then the dimension, again, I got my calculator here, is 0.925. So dimension, remember it's from this leading edge here. Don't grab this. I do this every time. Grab it here and then here. And we're going to drag it down here. And it doesn't matter where it goes. 0.925. And that'll move that whole rectangle. Since it's dimensioned, it'll go as a unit. All right, we'll do it again over here. Same rules apply. Make sure you don't catch that dimension. And then again, it's 0.05 by 0.04. And this time I'm going, my datum is 1.94 minus 0.025 is 1.915. This is where usually, I'm going to caught the edge. Usually you can, if you dimension, I can go anywhere on this line and then go over to here and it'll create that length, that linear distance, which is what I want. And 1.915. Perfect. All right, for the top ones, they're just going to line up to the same spot. So if I'm careful, I line up straight, you'll see a little construction line wants to appear there for me. And I just got to make sure that I'm zoomed in, catch it right where I want it, go up, type in the dimensions, 0.5 and 0.0. Oh, I hit 0.5, right? 0.05. I just hit tab again, I'll fix it, 0.05. Perfect. And that snapped right to where I wanted it to go. Do the same thing over here. Make sure I'm lined up with the one below it. Oh, I grabbed the wrong geometry there. I didn't want to do that. Again, let's try this side here, see if it works better. And that goes over 0.05, tap 0.04. Now we could always check this to make sure I put this in the right spot. So this should have the same dimension. This is 0.925. So from here to here should be 0.925, and it looks like it definitely is. You could see it right there. So I don't need to put it in there. I'm just going to hit escape. And so those are good. Next thing I need to do is the front ones. Again, the front ones are centered up in here. We're just going to go ahead and place a rectangle. Same, this one is this time I do the 0.04 first because it sticks out 0.04 and it's 0.05 thick. And I'm going up, using this one, 128, 1.28 minus 0.025 is 1.255. Always look at them. If it doesn't look like it's centered up, then you need to maybe tweak something, but this looks pretty good. So let's do the other one over here. See if it lines up for me properly. That looks good. Oh, I did those backwards, didn't I? Okay, I make mistakes. This should be 0.04 out. And this should be 0.05 thick. And then we'll just double check that distance. and that should be 1.255. Okay, now we're set. All right, so I'm finished my sketch, and now it's a question of just doing an extrude. When I extrude this now, I need to be real careful because these, I'm going to make sure I get these little rectangles without clicking outside of them. If I do, it's going to select the geometry underneath it, and I'm just going to have to start all over again. So just be careful. Select, select. And 6. There you go. I think I got all of them. Yes, I did. And then I'm going to go in instead of out. If I go over here and show you this, so right now it's going down from this plane. If I was to just go in, you see how it pokes through the roof in here. So I don't want to go by a set distance because no matter what I do, it's either going to be too short on this side or too long on the other. That was the whole point of using this work plane in the first place, is that we're going to use, instead of distance, we're going to go to the next feature. That's what to next means, is the next feature. So now I hit OK, and this created this projection all the way up, and so it's mated now with this surface up on it without sticking through it. I want to get rid of this work plane. I don't want to delete it, but I'm going to hide it. So I just go over to my browser tab, right click, and I can turn off the visibility of it. Now I can see my windscreen. If you want to get a little fun in here, you can change the material. Let's go to clear green. I could change what it's composed of. Instead of generic material, I could use, you know, polyethylene or whatever. Polyethylene low quality. There you go. So now you get your part, and that is it. So let's make sure we save it. I want you to save it with your last name and a part name, and you can see the three of these that I made in practice already. So Miller Windshield, and I'll call this one number 2 because that. So I want you to do your last name and then the part name, and then save it. When you do your snip tool of this to submit, make sure I see your name and the part name down below here when you take a snip of it. Okay. Thank you.